I am so much looking forward to you taking this podcast ride with Ricky Adamson and with me on Happy Hazel's bus. On this ride, you'll experience, like I did, how Ricky trains teachers and students to focus on the warm welcome that especially honors each person as a unique individual, taking a look at their culture, taking a look at their language, taking a look at how they bring their experiences into the complete human identity. We're going to take a look together at those that are concerned they don't fit in, that struggled with feelings like their personal experiences, cultures, languages are considered irrelevant. I love the fact that Ricky's grandmother's school bus has been his vehicle, if you'll forgive the pun, to write books, to help children understand inclusion, and to provide a concrete image of welcome to the students and teachers and publishers that he has worked with, taught, and supervised over the years. Ricky's a compelling combination of fascination with diverse cultures, compassion for individuals young and old, and dedication that he applied to get a PhD. I know you'll enjoy his clear presentation of insights and very practical approaches. So, welcome on the bus and enjoy the podcast ride. Hi, I'm Norah Jones. Welcome to It's About Language. This podcast connects language and culture to life, learning, and hope. You'll experience insightful conversations with creative leaders in the fields of education, business, arts, and science. My guests shed light on the impact of language and culture on individuals and society as they share their stories and experiences. You'll be informed and inspired as we explore how language and culture make us human and bring hope in the midst of a challenging world. My great pleasure to welcome Ricky Adamson to the podcast today. Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Nora. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And here's to you presenting to us today some of the insights that you have as a lifelong teacher, supervisor of world languages, working in publishing. So many things that include so many people, students and teachers alike, in the language and culture learning enterprise. How did you get into that anyway?
We'll start with how I got into teaching, which actually started in kindergarten.
Oh boy.
From kindergarten, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and it just continued to grow year after year. And I was the kid that, a lot of people might call me a nerd, and which is fine. It doesn't bother me. But I was the kid that not only was I watching my teachers as they taught me content, I was watching how they taught me. I was watching them with their teachers' editions up there at the front of the room. And eventually I started kind of helping the teachers choose new textbooks along the way. Or I wouldn't make a decision, but they would let me look at all the samples and everything.
Wow.
By the time I was in 8th grade, though, I was given the opportunity to be in the one section of French offered at my middle school.
Wow.
So 15 students out of 332 or something like that, were given this opportunity, and I fell in love with French. I thank my teacher, Ms. Craner. It just continued to grow. So when I got to high school with Madame Jeffers, it continued to grow even more. And I completed high school, and I majored in it in college with the intent to be a teacher. All of that journey began, all those years ago. When I finally, made it into my own classroom, obviously, that first year can be a little rough on you. You're still learning. Well, the first few years because you never stop learning. As I kept learning, as I kept teaching, I got to the point I wanted to share what I had learned with other teachers. Thanks to my high school principal that I taught under, she gave me the opportunities to do professional development for the teachers in the district across content areas. And I enjoyed doing that, and then it got me to thinking, I would love to do this for teachers. I would love to present professional development to teachers and work with them. And so that kind of drove my career path as I moved forward. When I worked on my graduate degree, I had opportunities. I even ended up out of the classroom, and as a campus-based, they were called academic facilitators, but I provided on-site professional development across content areas. That was my job. So, which is a really nice, great job to have. And then when I finished with my degree, I moved west from Arkansas. I moved west to Dallas. So, and then I was focused completely on languages. I was an instructional specialist for world languages, so I was able to work with those teachers, and we had about 200 teachers, across the languages. And eventually, I became director. But as these different things happened, I still continued to grow in that area of really wanting to provide language teachers substantial, rich professional development for them. And
Okay.
and in publishing, I've had that opportunity. So it's just kind of continued to grow, even as I've moved farther west. Not much farther, I guess I can go except into the ocean. But
You can go Hawaii, but I don't
right, I
know
could go
if
to
you.
Hawaii, but but yeah, so that's kind of how my journey has taken me and where that passion originated and where it has led me to some 40 years later.
That's fascinating. Now, the language experience, the
Hmm.
cultural experience, is
Hmm.
one that touches a lot, as we know, on identity and
Hmm.
how people see themselves and whether they feel included or excluded. What are some of the directions? Because you're a powerhouse presenter, you really bring people alive in a room when you are presenting to them and training them. How does that play a role for you? That
Oh,
awareness, that nature of language and culture itself?
yeah, and I thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
But for me, when I go into present to world language teachers, I realize from the get go that for some of them, this is the only chance that they're going to be in a language specific or world language specific session. And I want them to have those great experiences. I want them to leave with strategies, with renewed vigor and enthusiasm for what they do. So I want all of them, all of the teachers that are in there, to feel as if, this truly is about them. They're included in it. They're not, for lack of a better term, been just sitting on the sidelines while everyone learns about science content or everyone learns about the Pythagorean theorem or whatever, because they've been told to go to another content area. And to that end, I also try to impress on teachers the importance that their students immediately feel as if language and culture is about we and us, student included, than it is about them over there, those over there,
Okay.
as about other. The research shows that students, if they don't feel connected to the content, if they don't feel as if they are represented in the curriculum or even in the classroom, the way it's set up, they'll take a negative view of that particular content area or that course, and it kind of turns them off. And then they don't really have that motivation to learn it or to keep learning it or to excel in it. And I believe that language teachers, of all teachers, have the greatest opportunity to show students that they belong. That, yes, we may be learning French and we may be studying, cultures across French speaking Africa, Europe, Caribbean, and different places, but we can let them see themselves in that as opposed to just teach them about something going on, somewhere across the ocean or whatever the case may be, so that they truly do learn that, what, language is about me. It's about me. It's about my experiences just as much as about the experiences that other people are having and the similarities in those experiences. So, there are just subtle things that teachers that we all can do to make sure that even from the day students walk in your classroom for the first time, they immediately feel as if, oh, this relates to me. This is about me. It can be as simple as, teacher, the posters you have on the wall. Do your students, can they look at those posters and can they see themselves reflected in it? Can they see their multicultural characteristics reflected? Do they see students that look like them? Do they see students who, even in the curriculum, who come from a similar background based on like ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status? You know, because if the students see themselves immediately and feel welcomed, they know it's about them. And it's just it's a subtle way, but powerful.
As you speak a little bit more about what representation does to specifically empower students' engagement, broaden it also, please, into what the implications are for language and cultural understanding in society as a whole, especially,
Mhm.
frankly, in the United States.
To speak to how the first part about what you said last about what does it, how does it speak to society in the United States? In the US right now, we know that we're divided in a lot of ways. And I feel like as language teachers with language and culture, we have a chance to be that bridge because what we do is we celebrate language, we celebrate culture, we celebrate the differences and the similarities, and we show students and we teach them that it's a situation of us. And language and culture bridges that divide
Mm.
because if you think about it, a lot of us as language teachers, our outlook on the world comes from our experiences with language and culture, with, for me, for French cultures from around the world and the people I've met within those cultures that have given me the opportunity to enrich my experience by knowing them and learning their cultures and becoming friends with them. So the implication for me is that those little subtle things we do that, that they're part of it and that we celebrate those differences at the same time that we're society in general is going to become a better place. It's going to
Hmm.
be better for us all. But I just feel as if we had as a society in general an appreciation for other cultures, then we wouldn't have so much dissension. And language teachers, they're at the forefront of bridging the great divide, of
Hmm.
bridging
Hmm.
cultures, of showing that different is cool, that it's not wrong, that just because someone's culture is different from yours does not make it wrong. It just makes it different. And it makes it something to kind of intrigue you and to want to know more about it and to learn more about it. And as far as in the classroom, some of the ways that when students, their performance in class will improve. Like one of the things that when I was doing all the research, I found this study, and although it's not language specific, it's powerful because it does have implications for the language classroom.
Okay.
There was a study where they took a group of students, or two groups of students, very similar groups, and they gave one group a lesson from a science textbook or something with the images included, and it had like typical like white male scientists and things like that,
Okay.
and they gave the exact same lesson, the wording, that everything that's in it, with a change in the images and illustrations to female scientists, because your female students that were in the class, they saw that, oh, science is about me. Science is for me.
Oh,
I can do this. I
yeah.
can be a scientist. And the implication is for languages and cultures is for students to say, oh, I can learn French. I can learn Spanish. I can learn Chinese, the culture that goes with it, and immerse myself in it and enjoy it and seek it out. So the implications across the board go from just within those four walls of the classroom to the world.
Phenomenal. As a career educator and certified Gallup Strengths Coach, I engage with you and your team to bring energy, focus, and breakthroughs to all you do. Fluency Consulting provides workshops, presentations, talks, and team building events for K-16 educators and education-oriented organizations and businesses. Get energized, experience new insights, pathways, and perspectives. For more information, see our show notes or go to fluency.consulting.com. It's interesting, you once told me about the story of Happy Hazel's bus.
Oh,
It seems
yes.
like an interesting segue from the very
Hmm.
powerful statement that you just made, but there is a connection.
Hmm.
Who's Happy Hazel, and what about
Okay.
this bus, and what about seeing themselves or feeling
Hmm.
welcome? Tie those together, please.
Happy Hazel is actually my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And growing up, my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather, drove school buses, and they kept their buses at home because their routes, they lived out in the country, as we say in the South. Um, and they kept their buses at home because that's where their routes started and ended each day. And so I grew up playing on those buses, and I grew up hearing their stories and asking their stories of driving the bus and different things over the years. And so I myself became a school bus driver when I was teaching. I taught and drove the school bus. A few years ago, I decided to write some children's stories about my grandparents' experience.
Neat.
So I renamed my grandmother to Happy Hazel and my grandfather to Jolly Jim. And the first book, it was published a little over a year ago, and it's Happy Hazel and Jolly Jim's School Bus Adventures. And the whole premise of it is that there's a new student, it's the beginning of the school year, and a new student is going to start riding Happy Hazel's bus. And this student, uh, he has a crutch, and he's afraid that the students on Happy Hazel's bus are going to be mean to him or make fun of him because he's different. And the whole premise and moral of the story by the end is that he had a great day riding Happy Hazel's bus. He gets off the bus happy and excited because he found that everyone on Happy Hazel's bus welcomed him. They celebrated his differences. And I made a point when the book was published, as I was the illustrations that went in it and everything, I made a point that I wanted all kids to see themselves in it.
Wow.
So I made a point of making sure that, although Happy Hazel and Jolly Jim are white, on the bus you see African American kids, you see girls, you see Hispanic, in the book itself as it goes,
Hmm.
because it truly is an experience that everyone has in some way, and it's a similarity that we all share. That nervousness about being accepted, and even if we're different and things of that nature. So I took that story and I put it in a book, and my grandmother, she's 90 years old, so she was excited that there's a book about her driving the
Indeed.
school bus, and the way it relates to me for language and culture is as I was mentioning earlier, celebrate the differences and enjoy the differences and realize that it's okay to be different. You still belong. We all still belong.
It's powerful, Ricky. And you've taken me indeed back to the implication for your work in
Hmm.
professional in education. You touch on students directly through teaching them. You
Hmm.
touch on teachers directly through training and workshops,
Hmm.
professional development. You have currently have taken a job with another of a series of publishers
Hmm.
providing world language educational materials.
Uh-huh.
So when you turn to society and you
Hmm.
see the young people in particular, but basically anyone that's left out or feels like they're being left out, these
Hmm.
are all pathways that you can take to improve that situation. What are some of the ways that you do that?
Hmm.
Can provide us a little
Yeah.
bit more of an insight. And what are ways that, since you know this, that you encourage others to find their pathways to doing the
Hmm.
same thing?
So let's just take for example in a professional development session, if I'm leading it, and you have teachers that are taking part, and you have other teachers that maybe seem a little shy or a little frustrated. You take time to go to them. You take time to get to know them. you take time to ask about their experiences, you know, and it may seem like a small or a small gesture, but it has a large impact. And that's the same is true with students. When I was driving a school bus, I had kids from all economic backgrounds, and it was a very diverse group of students. But you can always pick out the kids that feel left behind. They kind of stay to themselves, or they spend a lot of time sitting on the front seat, not because they're in trouble, but because they want to talk to you. And I would take that time to talk to them. I would take that time to get to know them and to give them that encouraging word, that smile each morning and when they got on the bus, and in the afternoon when they got off the bus, and to find out how their day went. And it's the same for teachers in the classroom. I used to stand, we were required to, but I actually enjoyed it, standing outside my door between class periods. And, getting to know the kids, not just while they're in my room, but when they pass by, smile and say hello, acknowledge them. And interestingly, I learned a powerful lesson myself from that, because I had a student, or a couple of different students, they would stop and talk to me, and they weren't even in my class. And I asked one day, I said, you're not in my class, so why did you want to stop, and talk to me each day, or when you're passing by my classroom? And they said, because you're nice and you care and it shows. That meant a lot to me, and it was a lesson that I've tried to carry forward with me everywhere I go. Even here in Los Angeles, a city of millions of people, when I go out and I go running, I get crazy looks sometimes, but I will acknowledge people and say hello or smile, and because I don't know what kind of day they're having. And that might be the one time that someone acknowledges them or smiles at them. It's a small gesture on my part that may have a big impact. I don't know whether it does or not, but that's okay. I don't do it to find out, I made that person's day. I do it. If I made their day, I'm glad. If I didn't, I hope somebody does, sort of thing. And I think the same can be true when we talk about languages and cultures, is when we see people from other cultures or that speak other languages than us, if we take that moment to acknowledge them, to, say hello, it goes a long way. Because to me, there are a lot of people in this world that don't feel like they belong, and they feel like they're on the sidelines. And I don't think anyone should ever feel that way. I hope I'm not getting on my soapbox here, but I just don't want anyone to feel that way. I want everyone to feel wanted and accepted and included. And to me, that can start right in the classroom every single day.
You just did PD for the nation, Ricky. You demonstrated in your everyday life, but you've also exhorted folks to act that way in their lives, and also, of course, in the classroom. We have talked in previous podcasts about the role of educational publishing. What kind of role do you see for yourself, or if you wish to broaden it out, for educational publishing in general, to help to bring that message of inclusion, welcome, acceptance, and growth?
I believe that in educational publishing, we have a great opportunity to be the ones that show students that they're included. And that's as simple as being included in the illustrations and images in the textbook. That goes back to those subtle messages. It goes back to, in the textbook, the scenarios we see and the activities we see are relevant in real life, and things that the students are like, oh, I get this. I've done that before, or I could see me doing that, and then if you take it down to the teaching level, as someone delivering professional development, making sure that what you're doing in professional development that your students, that teachers, they see themselves in it, that they're
Ah,
not turned off by it, and like thinking, well, you don't know my experience, you don't know what I'm going through, you don't know, you haven't been here, and finding ways to pull in their experiences to help them grow as teachers, to really personalize it for
uh-huh.
them. You may have, 30, 50 people, whatever, in a professional development session, but if you find those little ways to help them personalize it for what they're experiencing and their needs and their students' needs, it'll go a long way. And for teachers, then they take that back, and they're able to then think of that as they're planning their lessons for their students. That, okay, what do I need to do to make sure every kid sitting in this class understands why we're doing this and how they are included. And like I said earlier, teachers can do little simple things like change the posters on the wall to have things that include everyone. And imagine how this could be if as publishers and professional development providers, we're doing those things, and then it's going to the teachers, and the teachers then are doing those things for students. Then students go out into the world and
Yeah.
they're doing those things. We really are, as publishers, as teachers, we really have a great opportunity to really kind of change the message, so to speak, or, add to the narrative. And I think, we need to remember that, I think.
Powerful. Ricky, one of the aspects we've actually been talking about language education, and the message here in this podcast has been so much about inclusion and representation and welcome.
Mhm.
When we talk about then the power of language itself,
Mhm.
what kind of role does the understanding of what proficiency means and what doors it opens, how does that
Mhm.
relate to what you're speaking about here behaviorally and visually?
The great thing about when we learn a language is that, think of how many more people we then can get to know, and we can learn about them, and that we can go to them and speak in their language. And think about the times we've all have done that. And we all know there have been times that the other person that we're speaking to, their face lights up because you're someone that's coming to them and speaking their language, which in and of itself is saying, I value you, I value your language, I value your culture, I find it important, I find you important. So with language, we have those opportunities. And, whether we go and use that language every day, or whether we use it to get to know people in our community and business, or just our personal lives, wherever we're going, it's powerful for the person that you're speaking to, for you to be able to speak their language. Because once again, subtly, to me, you're saying to that person, you matter enough that I want to speak in your language so that we can understand each other and I can get to know you. And the same is true if we're somewhere where maybe we don't know the language. When someone realizes that and they begin speaking our language to us, think of how it makes us feel,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And to me, language and culture, that's the ultimate bridge. Language changes the world. And motivator, as we're learning languages and we want to know people and we want other cultures, that in itself is going to drive us to try to get to, higher levels of proficiency and to reach those goals that we have.
How does this relate to young people that are in the country or even adults that have come
Mm-hmm.
in? Immigrants, those
Mm-hmm.
whose native languages have already developed that then are learning English as an additional
Mm-hmm.
language. How does this relate to their experience?
It lets them know that they're welcome. I'm out in public somewhere, wherever that may be, and someone is struggling to communicate something to someone else. because the other person doesn't understand, if I can step up and help them and use both languages, three languages, whatever the case is, it sends a message. You're putting a helping hand out, and you're saying, I'm here for you. I value you, and you matter, and your culture matters. And yes, you are trying to learn English, and I'm willing to help you on that journey too. But at the same time, if I can speak to you in your native language, it's comfort. I think as language teachers, we're good at doing that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to impress that on our students, that
Ah.
language is not just across the world. It's not just, let's use French, for example. It's not just me saying, oh, I want to learn French so I can go to Senegal. It's me learning French and saying, you know what? There may be someone from Senegal here, from France, from Quebec, from Guadeloupe, from wherever the case may be, and I can use it right in my own community. And the same, with Spanish, with Chinese, German, Italian, any number of languages. I could go on and on with the languages. But I think we have to impress on young people that language is in here and now. It's not in the when I go somewhere else. It's here, and embrace it and use it. Use it to better the world. Use it to better your own community. Use it to better someone else's community. And I think, and I use my own teaching experiences as this. I spent a lot of time, talking about France and different things in France and this and that, when now I would go back at times and kind of rephrase things, and not neglect France, not neglect the French speaking world, but maybe provide students those opportunities and scenarios that they may experience right here in the United States when they encounter someone from a French-speaking country, or if you're a Spanish teacher, from a Spanish-speaking country, or from Korea, from China, from Japan. I think that in and of itself helps send a message to students too, that, oh, yeah, this really is about me. It's about me where I am in time and place at this moment.
Right now. Right
Mm-hmm.
now. That's very powerful indeed. Well, speaking of right now, here's what I'd like you to do right now, please.
Okay.
I'd like you to imagine the listeners to this podcast. If you
Mm-hmm.
can turn to them visually, as it were, one
Mm-hmm.
last exhortation or invitation or warning, or however you would like to express it. What do you want to make sure that the listeners hear?
I want the listeners, if anything, to go away being a little more cognizant and knowing that there are small things that are subtle messages that have a large impact. Make sure everyone you're around feels included and not excluded. In whatever that situation is, in your classroom, and if you're teaching a university setting, if you're standing in the hallway, the kids passing by, if you're in a professional development with teachers you don't know, make them feel welcome too. The whole thing here is validate someone's existence, that they deserve respect and that you're going to give it.
Validate those folks, no matter where you
Mm-hmm.
find them. A
Mm-hmm.
powerful message indeed, Ricky. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
It's fascinating, really, the passion and the dedication and the sensitivity that you have. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Ricky.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it.
You bet. And good luck with the next stage of your career, and keep on passing on that great inclusion and validation everywhere you go, as you have been. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Let's continue the conversation. Be sure to check out my website, fluencyonline.com, to learn more about our guests and to check out the resources and information they've shared with us there. I have other ideas, resources, and opportunities there for you too. Again, thanks so much for listening, and until next time.